and it is my pleasure to now guide you into the opening session. I mentioned at the beginning that the Youth Symposium 2024 takes place under the patronage of the German Minister for Education and Research, Bettina Stark-Watzinger. Unfortunately, the minister could not be with us today, but she sent us a video message that I want to ask my colleagues to put on the screen.
Hello to all of you at the EOSC Symposium. We share a common passion. We want to uncover hidden treasures, hidden data treasures. On the one hand, you, the researchers, who explain the world to us, who make progress possible, who solve problems. And on the other hand, policymakers, who want to shape the future and create the best possible conditions for research. We share the conviction that science is an endeavor without frontiers, to use the words of the director of our National Research Data Infrastructure. Only by overcoming boundaries, national and disciplinary boundaries, will we achieve real progress. Will we master the grand challenges of our time? Will we see the breakthroughs that we so urgently need? Research data can overcome boundaries. It's the new oil, the gold for our millennium. How can we best share it, link it together, make it usable, while at the same time protecting it, so that our data doesn't end up in the wrong hands? That is something we always have to consider from the start. Our answer is the EOSC. It's our big opportunity, a common European data space for a community of shared values that manages data according to the FAIR principles of findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. This is how you defined it. We have launched many national activities in the areas of open science and research data management. This is a first step. The second step is to ensure that national solutions are compatible with the EOSC. Then we will have created something that is greater than the sum of its parts. As we have in Germany with the NFDI, our National Research Data Infrastructure, it's the flagship of our German research data ecosystem, to which our ministry provides up to 90 million euros in funding each year. The NFDI is developing services for improved research data management within the German research community. Around 400 universities and research institutions are working on this. At the same time, we are preparing for the NFDI to take the next step, to overcome national borders. NFDI goes EOSC. Here at the EOSC Symposium in Berlin is where we are giving the starting signal, with the launch of the EOSC EU node. This platform can serve as a hub that pools the initiatives of many countries. That is the goal. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexander von Humboldt, the great explorer, once said, and I quote, "Ideas can only be of use when they come alive in many minds." To share ideas, knowledge, and research, that was his goal. And to achieve this goal, he wrote many letters, as many as 50,000. Today, we don't have to write letters anymore. We have other ways of achieving the same goal. We have the EOSC, our key to innovativeness, to competitiveness, to being fit for the future. It is our shared goal to make this key work even better, to be an even greater success. So thank you for your commitment and your passion. Thank you for coming to Berlin today. My warmest greetings to all of you. I wish you every success in uncovering hidden data treasures.
So you did very well.
Liebe Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer.
Okay. Okay, so the point is, so we heard the minister, and I really think that this video deserves an applause. And I would like to invite the colleagues that are sitting here today from the German Ministry of Education and Research to thank the minister for this positive and visionary message. There were three things that captured my attention from this video. The recognition of EOSC as a key enabler for researchers and research in the future, the need for national solutions to be compatible with EOSC to create something that is greater than the sum of its parts, and the example of the NFDI initiative that, like similar other initiatives in other countries, is working on improving research data management. These initiatives represent the natural starting point to connect to EOSC. And as an FDI goes EOSC, this is the time for all countries in Europe to go EOSC. The national contributions are fundamental, but equally fundamental is the continuous support given to EOSC by the European Commission. With these regards, we have a video message from the European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, Iliana Ivanova.
Liebe Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer, die European Open Science Cloud ist unsere Leitinitiative für die digitale Transformation der Forschung. Sie ist ein zentraler Baustein für einen effektiven europäischen Forschungsraum, aber auch für unsere europäische Datenstrategie. Beides ist zur Sicherung der globalen Wettbewerbsfähigkeit und Datensouveränität Europas unabdingbar. It relies on the development of the so-called EOSC Federation, which aims to empower researchers across Europe by pooling together services for storing, sharing, and processing research outputs, transcending disciplines and borders. So our researchers can rely on an interconnected digital system of European scale and global importance. Today marks an important milestone, and I'm happy to announce the launch of the first node of the EOSC Federation, the EU node. This node will offer essential scientific resources and services, enhancing collaboration and innovation within the research community. I invite you to explore the EU Node website and share your insights to further improve it. Looking ahead, our focus will be on federating further our efforts, attracting additional resources and service providers from across Europe, from different thematic areas and scientific disciplines, creating new nodes that will enrich the value of the European Open Science Cloud. I invite you to join us in this pursuit. Together, we can establish a robust EOSC Federation that allows researchers throughout Europe to organize and optimize their research work and collaborations within a trustworthy and secure environment. The European Commission is fully committed to this endeavor. Let's work together to make the European Open Science Cloud a great success. Thank you.
And thank you also to the Commissioner for reminding us the role of EOSC as this flagship initiative for digital transformation of research, but also as a central building block for the implementation of the European Research Area agenda, and for remarking how the EOSC Federation can be a game changer in Europe. And on these words, I'm honored to call on stage Signe Razzo, Deputy Director General at DG Research and Innovation at the European Commission. An applause for Signe.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to be here today in person in Berlin at the opening of the EOSC Symposium 2024. Let me start by thanking Minister Bettina Stark-Wansinger for her patronage of this event, and also thanking the organizers for all the work and for putting together a very attractive program. It's inspiring to see so many gathered here in Berlin, but also online, to discuss such an important initiative as EOSC. As one of my responsibilities in DG Research and Innovation is international cooperation, I'm also very glad to see that so many countries outside of Europe are also participating in the event. We are all eager to hear about EOSC achievements in 2024, to learn about the brand new EOSC EU node, and to coordinate our activities, engage further with existing collaborators, and meet new partners to discuss next steps. Now I'd like to share with you my reflections on how EOSC relates to several of the key challenges that Europe must face in the coming years. The next European Commission will aim to put research and innovation at the heart of our economy. Europe's competitiveness will depend on invention and ingenuity. As Mr. Draghi has reminded us recently, to achieve real impact, Europe needs to collaborate more across borders, sectors, and disciplines, be it in joint research projects or around digital strategies. Collaboration is what will give Europe the edge in the next generation of science and technology, and it is the key to secure Europe's position on the global stage and to addressing the current and next socio-economic challenges. Indeed, cross-sectoral collaboration through open science practices and the fair digital agenda at the heart of EOSC are key contributors to advance high-quality research and to valorize knowledge for the benefit of a society and economy. Mr. Letta has proposed a fifth freedom, anchoring research and innovation in the single market, and suggesting that a central pillar of this is the creation of a European knowledge commons. We will hear directly from him next. We are up to the challenge. Ensuring the free circulation of researchers, scientific knowledge and technology is stated in the EU Treaty and is a focus point proposed for the next Commissioner for Research and Innovation. EOSC, with its vision of openness and collaboration to seamlessly share data and tools across borders and disciplines, is already contributing to these priorities and is and will continue to be a core element of the European research area, of the European strategy for data and the digital transformation of research. The digitalization of research brings efficiency gains, but above all, it enables completely new ways of doing research. As such, EOSC can bring very positive impacts for the long-term sustainability of European research infrastructures, which, as main producers of research data in Europe and key drivers of technological innovation, are a central pillar of the European research area. EOSC is already helping in developing new ways to access and use research infrastructures, for instance, through the creation of virtual research environments in many thematic domains, lowering access barriers and enhancing the usability of their resources. The federated digital environment proposed by EOSC is destined to play an important role for the interconnection of research infrastructures and also for the articulation with other European data spaces. This can maximize access to and reusability of the data and services and enable interdisciplinary research while profiting from economies of scale. With EOSC, we are pooling resources. We are collecting and linking research projects. We are offering a range of applications and infrastructure services to our researchers. I'm convinced that EOSC is well underway to offer a trustworthy and secure environment that will serve the needs of researchers in Europe for high-quality, fair data and interoperable services. In the process, we should not forget that the purpose of digital tools is to enhance human abilities with machine capabilities, and that to succeed in the digital transformation, we have to put people at its center. First of all, it is essential to upskill our researchers and support staff for data-intensive science, to provide them with lifelong learning, digital skills and support services so that they can contribute to and reap the benefits of the digital age. Next, we need a shift in the way research is assessed, incentivized and rewarded. This is instrumental for open science and collaborative practices to be embraced and adopted by the research community. After all, how and why would a young researcher pursue a career in research data management if she or he cannot find adequate courses on the subject, nor job vacancies under that description, and has an unclear path for career progression? We need to urgently change this to align and adapt research careers to the continuously evolving research landscape and its new needs. To conclude, I'm very pleased to see that EOSC is on very good track to become a success story. But we are only scratching the surface of its full potential. The best is yet to come. The launch of the EOSC EU node and the first steps to build an operational EOSC Federation will definitely accelerate its development and guide us on the way forward. EOSC is spearheading an ambitious transformation, a paradigm shift, one that puts open science and collaboration at its heart to accelerate scientific discovery and to leverage Europe's collective intellectual power. And yet again, the key to success is collaboration between all of us. I want to thank you all, the very vibrant community engaged in EOSC, for your work and dedication. Researchers, research projects, infrastructure managers, policymakers, all your contributions matter. I would like to thank member states and associated countries represented in the EOSC steering board, as well as the EOSC Association, that, together with the European Commission, continuously fuel the coordination efforts needed to align developments and create synergies within the very broad EOSC community. I call on all of you to keep increasing your enthusiasm, dedication to EOSC. You can count with the dedicated support and commitment from the European Commission, from myself and from all my colleagues in this important and transformative endeavor. I wish you all a very interesting and productive EOSC Symposium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Signe, for this speech and for reminding us how massively EOSC can have an impact, but also for challenging us in keeping up with the good work that we have started. So thank you very much. Before moving to the updates from the tripartite governance, we have a last short video contribution from the former Prime Italian Minister Enrico Letta that Signe just mentioned. Enrico Letta is author of the recently published report on the future of the internal market. Starting from the analysis of how Europe has changed fundamentally since the single market was launched, the report provides policy recommendations for the future of the single market, remarking its crucial importance for strengthening European competitiveness. And in this video, you will hear from the author one of the main recommendations mentioned in the report.
Dear friends, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share with you some ideas that are at the basis of my report on the future of the single market. I was asked by the European Council and the European Commission to write this report. I presented the report after 9 months traveling around Europe, visiting the 27 countries, visiting 65 cities, more than 400 meetings, a bottom-up approach and a sort of collective exercise. I presented the report. I'm now traveling around Europe to discuss the report with stakeholders, with governments, academic milieu, and I am helping the Commission and European institutions to land with some of these ideas. I'm very happy because Ursula von der Leyen decided to take some of these ideas, and she put in the roadmaps that she gave to the European new commissioners, the 26 with her, and also because she put some of these ideas in the speech that she gave in Strasbourg in July. The main flagship I used in this report is the fifth freedom idea. Why the fifth freedom? It's not just a slogan or a nice brand. It is something very true. The single market is well known as the market of the four freedoms: freedom of movement of goods, services, capitals, and persons. That was an enormous success until now, but in reality, when it was created in the 80s, the world and the economy was very analogic, very tangible. What we touch was at the base of this quadripartition of the four freedoms. My idea is that we have to relaunch in the direction of the intangible. So the idea to add the fifth freedom, innovation, knowledge, research, skills, and to give the possibility for this legislature to be the legislature of the fifth freedom. This is absolutely necessary because we, the Europeans, we are lagging behind the US. And also we are lagging behind the Chinese on these topics. For many reasons, not only because we don't have the fifth freedom and we have to add it. In the report, I presented an idea on how to organize in constitutional terms, in juridical terms, this new mission, but also because to have investments on research, on skills, on innovation, knowledge, we need also private investments, not only public investments. And for that, we need the integration of financial markets. In a new mission, I named it the Savings and Investments Union instead of the old and unsuccessful Capital Markets Union. Ursula von der Leyen created a vice president in charge for that and a commissioner working with him in charge of the Savings and Investments Union. And the main aim is to focus savings and private investments to common goods. And today, innovation and knowledge at European level has to be a common good, and we have to work in that direction. So I strongly believe that what you are doing, what you will discuss today, will be of great importance related to this flagship.
Okay, does this fifth freedom dedicated to research, innovation, knowledge, and education sound familiar to you? I hope so. So the letter vision is, and what is written in the report is very much aligned with EOSC. And the report advocates for actions and values that are really integral part of the EOSC mission. The EOSC Association Board has prepared a reflection paper that will be published in the next weeks. So stay tuned. I just want to extract a quote from the letter report that I want to read to you. It says, those who can freely access new research, increasingly accurate data, and more efficient technologies can innovate more quickly, improve their processes, and maintain competitiveness in the global market. Eliminating barriers to data access is a powerful catalyst for innovation, improved public services, and economic growth. It advances groundbreaking scientific research and arms businesses with tools to compete globally. I could not find better words to give the floor now to the representatives of the EOSC tripartite governance to tell us what has been done and what are the plans for the future to change gears to accelerate EOSC. At the end of this session, there will be some time for some questions from the audience. So I remind you to use the Slido now. It's now the time. If you have questions during the presentation, and we will take them at the end of the session. And I would like now to invite on stage Michael Arentoft, Head of the Open Science and Research Infrastructures Unit from the DG Research and Innovation, the European Commission.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Good afternoon, colleagues in the room and online. It's my pleasure to talk about what has happened since we met last time in this configuration in Madrid. And I would claim that indeed a lot has happened, in particular moving really to an operational phase of EOSC, but also policy-wise. And we already heard some of the policy support that is going into EOSC, and all of this has happened since the last EOSC Symposium. So, a reminder that we have always presented EOSC both as a system of systems, a federation of data and services from research infrastructures and other service providers, a web of fair research data and services. But at the same time, we have also said it's important to mobilize investments, it's important to align policies and systems, it's important to scale up, and indeed the headline that the tripartite chose for this session is all about scaling up and really accelerating the developments so that we move into an operational phase where we can show the added value, where we can show the benefits of being part of the EOSC Federation. Benefits, of course, moving beyond disciplinary boundaries, benefits, of course, moving around national borders. Let me first talk about the kind of policy support that we have been pushing forward at the EU level since we met last time. First of all, we have kept high on the European Research Area Policy Agenda an action which is all about open science, and where EOSC is the key enabler for practicing open science. We have also kept it high on the agenda, which is the digital agenda of the EU, in particular the European Strategy for Data, where, as you know, EOSC is the transversal space for science research and innovation that eventually will be fully articulated with other sectoral spaces. Now, we have at the same time during 2024 discussed what comes next in terms of the European Research Area Policy Agenda. This is the current list of proposed priority actions in the policy agenda that will run from 25 to 27. It will only be decided once the new Commission enters office, probably 1st of December, and then, of course, a bit of reflection time. So we hope that the next policy agenda will come out very early next year. And again, you see as the very first action, an action around enabling open science. And if you look at the details behind that, it talks again about the further development and the operationalization of EOSC. Also very closely connected, since it builds, of course, on existing infrastructures, is the further sustainability, accessibility of research infrastructures. And I have highlighted two others on this slide. One is about incentivizing and rewarding the practicing of open science and using open research infrastructures like EOSC. And also I've highlighted, of course, what is important and will become even more important, the use of advanced analytical tools, AI tools in particular, within the science sector. So we are on good track. This is the short list already of priority actions, and I'm pretty convinced that this will also be part of the next ERA policy agenda. We already heard from Mr. Enrico Letta himself. Sarah read out one quote. Here is another one, which I think maybe is even closer associated to EOSC as such. Mr. Letta was saying that in order to realize research, innovation, knowledge, technologies as the fifth freedom of the single market, you need to create a European knowledge commons as a central pillar of such a strategy. We also saw about 6 weeks ago Mario Draghi with his report about the future of European competitiveness. Again, there are clear references to some of the basic pillars of EOSC, namely the availability of world-leading research infrastructures and technology infrastructures that can serve the whole European ecosystem for research and innovation. And also highlighting that all of this should be guided by an approach of open science and open access. And then, of course, last week was the report of the high-level group, which has written a report about the midterm evaluation of Horizon Europe, and that is a report that very much serves into what should be the next funding programs for European-level support to research and innovation. And here is a very clear reference to EOSC, mentioning it directly, again, as a key enabler for the digitalization of research infrastructures. And also, and this is really a commitment for all of us then to deliver on what he says here, that EOSC has the potential to become the most generally used infrastructure in Europe. This is very ambitious, but I think we need to keep the ambition. We need to not shift the gear down, but even further up and making sure that we accelerate the developments and show the added value. As was already announced, there was a technical launch of the EOSC EU node, which will be the first node of the EOSC Federation. It is a node which is being procured by the European Commission that will enable researchers to discover, to share all kinds of research outputs and tools, and that will provide a guaranteed and high-quality compute and storage services environment to support researchers in all of their work. It serves as a blueprint, it serves as a reference node in the Federation that will be connected over the next month and years to other nodes. It serves as a reference in terms of its architecture, in terms of its underlying open source software, and first and foremost, it serves as the federating capabilities, the glue of the EOSC Federation, for instance, in terms of authentication and authorization, but also in terms of software as a service offerings that it will provide to other parts, other nodes of the EOSC Federation. So it is the European level, multidisciplinary, multinational scientific data service portfolio that it will eventually be providing for all our researchers. What happens after that? Well, one node doesn't make a federation, so you need, of course, to build up the federation, and we will have as a goal over the next year or so to realize the first nucleus of the EOSC Federation with at least the first wave of nodes that will be tested to interoperate and work with each other. We will then have, of course, all the time an inclusive approach. No one is left out. Everyone who has engaged positively into building the federation will be part of these discussions. We will have to have a staged approach in terms of testing the interoperability, in terms of also experimenting with the different policies and rules that need to apply across the federation. So first and foremost, we need to have this continuous engagement of the whole community, those that are providing services, resources, data sets into the federation, and of course, very importantly, the users of the federation. We will, over the coming months and years, also explore what kind of organizational arrangements that will be needed in terms of, as I said, policies and rules. Very importantly, as we go along, also to have showcases, demonstrators of the added value. And at all of these stages, the involvement of the end user is absolutely essential. All of this takes place in the current configuration. As I said, the EU has taken the step forward and procured the very first node of the federation. At the same time, we function within what we call the tripartite governance. So we make here the decisions for what should be the operations in this initial phase. And this takes place, of course, between the Commission, the Member States associated countries, and the research community and the EOSC Association. So here you will hear during the conference about more in detail about how what it takes to become an EOSC node. This has been put forward in the note on the requirements to become a node. The handbook, which explains in more detail what this entails. There has been an expression of interest launched during the summer in the form of a questionnaire, very positive response, more than 120 that showed the will for positive engagement in this build-up phase of the federation. At the same time, we're also discussing, because it's not too early, what happens after 27. We have a current framework until 27, and we're discussing what would be the most appropriate setup in terms of the governance. We need to move beyond the current governance where the EU is procuring, and we have an experimental phase of building up the federation. We need, of course, to secure the future finances. You know that a lot of this financing comes from a European co-program partnership. Is this the right type of partnership for the future? Is there a better setup now that we move into an operational phase? We need to think of an operator of the system. So all of these things are also in discussions now, which is very timely also because now is when proposals will come out, including from the Commission, of how this will be financed, operated, and governed in the future. Very little, just one slide about the support we give in Horizon Europe. So we are a little bit more than halfway now. You can see that there are 36 projects that will be running as of the end of this year. We are, as a total, investing $500 million over the 7 years. We have secured already our priority setting into the next work program, which will be issued in April next year. And then very soon thereafter, at the end of next year, will come already the work program for the last 2 years of Horizon Europe. So we expect December 25 to adopt the final stretch for Horizon Europe. We are getting key inputs, as you see here, from all different corners. We take particular care that we have a wide stakeholder consultation, and we believe we have a good, very good draft set of priorities for the next calls for proposals that will come out, as I said, in April. At the same time, we have intensified links to research infrastructures, because, as I mentioned before, they are important players in this build-up phase of EOSC. We have a task force with ESFRI, the Strategic Forum for Research Infrastructures, that has been underway already since last summer, and that in all likelihood will be prolonged for another 2 years in their mandate. And my final slide, to remind us all about what we should be expecting in terms of added value of joining the federation. So what would be really the benefits of going beyond disciplinary virtual research environments, of going beyond national research communities and into virtual research environments that are being enriched by even more discoverable data sets, even more research services, even better workflows, outreach to even more research communities. And of course, all of this made possible because EOSC is also about economies of scale, pooling our resources, connecting, interlinking various types of digital research objects. And finally, also, this is not only giving access to a much wider range of applications and infrastructure services. Of course, there's also a comply by design type of benefit that once you're connected to the federation, you know that you're working in a trustworthy and secure environment that makes sure that you comply with issues such as privacy, data protection, access policies, acceptable use policies. So this we also see very much as a trustworthy, high quality virtual research environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I remind you all to put your questions in Slido. We will have some time after these presentations to ask to our speakers. So we heard the updates from the European Commission. Now we will hear the updates from the countries. And I'm pleased to invite on stage Volker Beckmann, the coordinator for the implementation of EOSC in France at the Ministry for Higher Education and Research, and the EOSC Steering Board co-chair.
This was a bit too fast. No? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your enthusiasm for EOSC and for making things happen. So it's really a symposium about moving forward, accelerating things. We always get this comment, where's the tangible EOSC? So, and this is something we are working on now, and I think Michael put it very nicely, saying, well, in the last year, really a lot of things happened. So I'm going to present to you the point of view coming from the steering board. So what is the steering board? It's an expert group by the Commission. This means you have representatives of the 27 member states and the 13 associated countries. So you have 40 countries represented there, and it's co-chaired between the European Commission and the country's representative, and has been in place now for 2.5 years. And one main point is to represent the interests of the member states and associated countries in the EOSC governance, in this tripartite, to discuss it with you, and to address policy issues relevant for the development of EOSC. So, and one point which I think is very, very important for the steering board, and I thank the members of the steering board who are here and to do this on a daily basis, the connection with the colleagues in the countries, to communicate what we want to do in EOSC and to make this then happen on a national level. Every country is working differently, different types of research organizations, research infrastructures, and you have to make this you have to translate this into a national context, and we have to work at the national level as good as we can to prepare to being part of the EOSC. So it's a question of information flow also between the EU level and the national level, and this goes in both ways, of course. And at the same time, we also need to connect with other relevant initiatives at the EU level. And so the drawback is a bit, we meet only 6 times per year, so the real work, so to speak, is happening in subgroups which have a bit higher frequency and where we discuss things like monitoring and policies, for example. So, for example, monitoring, why is this important for us? Well, the countries put a lot of money into research, into the EOSC also, but in research in general, and the research infrastructures, in everything happening. So we have to know what happens with that. So how are we doing at the national level? And what we do first is that we look at policies, because that's the building block to make things happen in your country. So we want to know what policies are in place. And then we look at practices, for example, what kind of investment is triggered by these policies, and what kind of monitoring is already happening at the national level. And finally, we discuss use cases, so success stories, so to speak, of EOSC in action. So the last survey, so this is already the third one we have been conducting. The last one was launched in January. So 32 countries replied and validated. So you have a very big data space there to analyze. So this is going to be public very soon. But 63% of the countries have now a national policy on open science. There has been an investment of about 480 million euros in 2022. So we always are a bit back with this reporting, because we first have to do our calculations at the national level. And you can download and access this brochure of use cases, which highlights 27 examples from the 27 member states, what is happening around EOSC in their country. So the next data of the current survey is already available online under this link, which you can then afterwards click on, and it's going to be very soon available in the new EOSC and Open Science Observatory. So that's a graphical interface for you where you can analyze data per country and also trends. And this is going to look new soon because it's being transitioned from EOS Future to EOS Track, which is now taking care of this tool. So this is just some screenshots how this is going to look like. So you can look at the different domains we are monitoring. You can look at your country or at countries level. You can look at investments and so on. And you can also analyze trends which are happening in the context of EOSC. So, and then this is also following a lot of comments that the observatory should be a bit more appealing. So we try to make this more interactive, more informative as before. For example, you can see very easily then an overview of the investment into EOS and Open Science. And what you see there, and might be quite surprising, the biggest part of this is open access to publications where we invest at the national level. So, and then trends, you can also look at, so this is just a teaser, so I think the numbers might not be completely correct there. So this is the monitoring we are doing in order to see how we are doing in principle. But then we work a lot on policies. So how do we make sure that you have the right frame in your country in order to do the things you have to do and you want to do? And we identified that research infrastructures are, of course, very large data providers in our communities and are also consumers of research data and of services. So we have to make sure that this link is very strong between the research infrastructures, which includes the e-infrastructures, and the EOSC. And for this, we have a task force which is in place since summer last year, and we had a workshop in January, and the outcome was a policy paper, which has been then also shared with the steering board. So it's a common product on fair data productivity and advanced digitalization of research, and you're invited to have a look at this if you haven't seen it yet. And we are continuing our work in this task force. So the next big topic, of course, is the building of the federation. And one big aspect for us is there, how can we make sure that this is useful for research infrastructures? What are the concerns of research infrastructures? How can we be sure that we deliver something they need? And how do we make sure that they are going to insert their services, their data, and perhaps also their e-infrastructures into what we want to do in EOSC in the federation? So this brings me to the federation. We are going to discuss a lot about the federation this week. That's really, for me, this step to have something more tangible where you can run workflows, where you can really do something and you have an added value. So as it was mentioned already, the EOSC EU node is just the reference node, and then we need a lot of service providers, data, services, e-infrastructures in order to make this work, right? You are asked there to bring in your expertise, your results, your services you have into this federation. And I think a very important point is also that we have to stop this cycle of projects where after the end of a project, very useful things have been created for a community or at the national level or even at the EU level, but then they are not maintained and they end and they are kind of forgotten. Even recommendations, they are then put in some deliverable and they are not used. So we have to stop that. We have to make this exposed to the EOS ecosystem. So we have to find a way beyond the project duration to use what you have been producing in this 36 projects, I think it was mentioned, we are going to see. So for the EOS Federation, of course, a very important aspect is now you are asking, so what do I have to do in order to be into this federation and so on? At the same time, it has to be demonstrated what is the benefit for you as a service provider, data provider, to be in this federation. And I think it was mentioned, increased visibility, the collaboration, the support you get there, but also I think that's a very important point, your visibility at the national level to say, okay, I'm part of this EOS federation, this is part of your policy, hopefully in your country, And so this is also a good reason then to be supported at the national level for what you are doing. So, and of course, we hope to have new users and new research opportunities through this. And as countries, of course, we have a very selfish idea about the federation. We invest into research and we want to have the best return of investment. So this means we don't want to finance something at national level and then it stays kind of hidden and it's not exposed to the world. No, we want to make data reusable and we want to have this at the EU level. We want really that what we finance, that this has an impact, and this is very important for the countries. So this was mentioned already. So how do we see the future? How do we go forward now? So this is the question about post-27, what happens after Horizon Europe with EOSC? What structure, governance, financial model shall we put in place for the EOSC? And so I think there's a general understanding, we're still in this discussion, that it should be a tripartite, so research communities, commission, the countries. There has to be a more permanent solution for the core of EOSC, so what is now the EOSC EU node. We have to make sure that this is not project-based, right? It should be somebody taking care of that, probably a legal entity, and then having a duration, at least over the duration of the next framework program. And we need perhaps a stronger engagement of member states and associated countries in this. So you have seen, last year we discussed this, so we had developed in the steering board, we had a number of documents explaining what kind of different models there are, and we had very lively discussions. And then in April we said, okay, let's first work on the EOSC Federation to get this started, and then we come back to these questions, how do we finance and how do we govern it? Because we want to know what we are actually talking about. So then I think we are now at a point where we can re-enter into this discussion. And of course, as Michael already mentioned, there are now more inputs to this discussion, like the Letta report, the Draghi report. Everybody talks about competitiveness. So we have to make sure that this is aligned with what we are proposing then for EOSC after 27. So we are going to intensify the exchange on these points at the EOSC steering board. So we're discussing putting in place a task force where also the association will be included. And we want to really have a recommendation on how this should look like in spring next year. Because you know the FP10, the Framework Program 10 discussion is going to kick off really next year. So we want to have our arguments ready in order to enter the discussion. So just to summarize briefly, so EOSC steering board, what do we do? So the monitoring I mentioned, so and I think this new interface is going to be very, very nice to have really access to the information which we request from the steering board members and the countries. We work on policies, so you have seen this fair data, productivity and advanced digitalization of research policy. We are working right now on another policy, EOSC as a common good, so we have to see this, we still have to finalize this. You're going to see then next year in the symposium. We have this S3 EOSC task force. It's not only S3s, it's ERICS, S3s, and the EOSC. And I think this has been very productive over the last years, providing input and recommendations. And the EOSC Federation, I think this is really the step forward now to have something tangible, but it's not everything, right? So it's not that we start from scratch. We have so many things developed in our countries, financed by our countries, which are working for many years in some cases, before EOSC even. And we want to bring this in. So the federation is going to be a glue, and we shouldn't forget that most what we do is at the national level in terms of financing. Also, when you think about research infrastructures, that's of course the money from the countries coming there. So you have to work with your national representatives in order to advance this and to ensure that you can continue providing this good service you are doing. So EOSC after Horizon Europe, so we need a governance and financial structure which is solid in order to go on for the duration of FP10, and the key discussions are now starting or restarting a bit after we had halted them a bit over the summer this year. So I think in summary, so the EOSC steering board changes gears to accelerate EOSC at the EU, but especially at the national level. So this, I cannot stress too much, this is the work we are really doing. We have to organize our communities. We have to better be coordinated at the national level. And the EOSC Federation, for us, is also an opportunity to say, well, this we want to do on the EU level. So this needs to be done at the national level. So my point is always, if you're not ready to share the services within your country with the neighboring research organization, it will be very, very difficult to convince your organization to share these services at the EU level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Volker, and thanks to the participants, because I see that the Slido is warming up. So be ready for, for the Q&A. Now it's my pleasure to invite on stage the president of the EOSC Association, Karel Leuben.
Thank you, Sarah. I would like to start by welcoming everybody here in Berlin and online on behalf of the EOSC Association to show interest in EOSC and in the developments of EOSC. And I would like to thank the organizers of this, event here, and especially Sara Garavelli, who has put out a lot of effort to make this possible. With that, let me also change gear and show you that the EOSC Association is alive and kicking. We have 57, sorry, this is the Dutch in me, members in the association, and members and observers. And if we look at them, roughly 50% of them are research performing organizations, and this is the way they identify themselves. Quite a number are a combination of research performing and service providing organizations, some of them including the research infrastructures. Then some 7% are funders, some, let's say, 23% are purely, let's say, service providers, and, well, there are, of course, a few others as well. Let me look at what the association has been doing so far in 2024, among other things. First of all, we started a, let's say, inquiry with respect to the next version of the SCRIA, and I will mention that later on. And recently, we did a consultation on the multi-annual roadmap, and I'll explain that in a minute as well. Building the EOSC Federation, this is what the theme of this symposium is also today, and this is the main effort we are doing at the moment. And for that, we are also working on what is called the EOSC Federation Handbook, and recently we sent out a, let's say, consultation on that, which you can find online. If we look at the process of delivering EOSC, with respect to the view from the co-program partnership, the co-program partnership based on an MOU between the European Commission, DG RTD and DG Connect, and the EOSC Association prepares with a consultation of the community what we call multi-annual roadmap. Most of the time for 2 years, last time for 1 year, 2025. And this multi-annual roadmap is given to the Commission as input for the discussion they have with the countries on the Horizon Europe program. And then part of this Horizon Europe program is the Infra-EOSC part, with projects totaling, as we have seen before, for over a period of 7 years for 490 million euro. What we've done as an association, together with the Commission, looking at the projects, and together with the association and the projects we have made a vademecum to describe how the projects could collaborate jointly and work jointly in this effort. And as I said, we just recently finished the multi-annual roadmap 26-27 and gave it to the Commission as input for the discussion on next year's programs. If we look at the SCRIA, which is the result of a consultation as well, and as I said, we are working on the next version 2.0, and we will start doing that after the outline was presented earlier this year, next year, then part of what comes into this co-program partnership is the projects. I already mentioned it, coming from the money of the Commission, and the other part is an in-kind contribution from the members of the association. And if we look at this in-kind contribution over the years 23 till 22-23, we can see that it totals already more than the 500 million we have committed in this MOU. And if we look ahead, 24-25, these plans are now made, these are plans, then we come to a total of 1.3 billion euro over a period of 4 years. This is a lot of money. There you see, as Volker said, there's a lot of input from the countries because this is money coming from the countries. But we also must, let's say, be clear, this is a very broad agenda on open science, and this is not only concentrated on the EOSC part of it. Building the EOSC Federation. This is what we do with the tripartite. This is the tripartite governance meeting we had in Brussels in April of this year, and this tripartite looks after the partnership. Let me explain how this tripartite works, because the tripartite is, of course, not a legal entity. It's the collaboration, as Michael mentioned it, between the Commission, the Member States in the form of the expert group, the Member States and associate countries, I should say, in the form of the expert group and the association. And this tripartite formed around the partnership where we invite the expert group to be part of the board of this partnership, talking about the progress of the partnership, a partnership of 1 billion, 490 plus 500 million, as I mentioned. This tripartite meets twice a year, half a day. And in that way, we cannot make a change of gears. In that way, we cannot accelerate. So earlier this year, we decided to form what we call a tripartite group, which is a group of representatives of those three parties, the European Commission, the association, and the expert group. And they meet every 2 to 3 weeks for about 2 hours. They also can invite experts for their meetings in order to discuss in these meetings the progress. And they give suggestions to the tripartite, they make progress, and they make speed happen. We set out over the summertime a questionnaire, and let's not look at the questions at this moment, because you can do that if you look at the slides. But this questionnaire was to inquire the interest in the community with respect to delivering services through the EOSC Federation coming, or delivering resources at the EOSC Federation coming, or entering into the Federation with an EOSC node. So we use the words enrolling in the Federation with an EOSC node and onboarding of resources, either repositories or services, onto a EOSC node in order to get part or to be part of this federative structure. Questionnaire was open from the 12th of July until ultimately the end of August, and it led to a lot of responses. It was already mentioned, more than 120 responses came in, and out of those 120, 121 to be more exact, 52 said we would like to create an EOSC node now or in the very near future. Out of those 52, 42 said we would like to do that before the middle of next year, 2025. Out of the 121, 51 said we can offer as well repositories, data, as services on those data. 47 said we can offer services, and 10 said we can offer repositories and data. Interesting difference between the two, and this probably has to do with the history of the EOSC portal, for example, where it was mainly services and to a much smaller extent repositories and data. About 12 didn't specify what they would offer. Probably they just wanted to put a placeholder into the system in order to be informed. Now, we asked as one of the questions, what do you see as the added value for you and your users if you would join this federation? So this is not a suggestion, we think this is of value for you. No, we ask them what they think is the value for them. Well, out of a lot of text, these 6 points stand out. Increased visibility and reach, and exactly that is what a federation is for, to increase the reach of researchers and to increase the visibility of the results of researchers. Collaboration and interoperability. And again, this is exactly what the federation is for, to collaborate, to make things possible because of the interoperability that was not possible before, and to, let's say, go against challenges that you could not tackle before. Support for open science and fair principles. A lot of organizations implicitly said, well, we are asked by our board or by our government to do open science, to stimulate open science, and to work according to the FAIR principles. And this will offer us an opportunity to show that and to make that clear. Access to broader resources and expertise, well, very similar with the first reply, but then seen from this view of I can not only be visible, but I can also see others, and I can also use the results of others. Influence on policies and standardization. Yes, the more you're on board, the more active you are, the more influence you will have. Of course, that is not a deciding part, but of course, if you are there, you'll be listened to. So the whole community is listened to, but the more active you are, the more you're listened to. And last but not least, sustainability and economic benefits. That's an interesting one because we never, ever promised sustainability or, let's say, benefits in an economic sense. But people sense that if they join forces into this federation, and if the federation shows its value, it's not so easy to stop. It's not so easy not to finance it from the Commission or not to finance it from the country. So joining forces into this federation, making this possible, will definitely increase the possibilities for stability and economic benefits. I mentioned it already, we started working on the Federation Handbook. The Federation Handbook will describe the purpose, the structure, the governance, the architecture, and the operations of the Federation. And this is an effort we do on behalf of the tripartite as an EOSC association in order to make this possible for parties to join the Federation. And the EOSC Federation Handbook is being written in a collaborative manner. We've invited collaborators. We have 35 answers of people that help us in writing, help us in reviewing, and that's the way we work in, let's say, meetings, events, and sprint. This group meets every week. The handbook draft is out for consultation at the moment. The Federation Handbook has 6 chapters for the time being. 3 have been written. The outline of the other 3 you can find online, so please give your reaction to these texts and to this outline with respect to what we see as important for forming the Federation. Association has been doing more. If you look at the landscape of 2021, Horizon 20, this is the way the landscape looked. And if you look at the landscape now, this is the way the landscape looks now. So a much more, let's say, branding type of approach with all these projects linking to what we call EOSC with the same type of branding, talking to each other and interacting. And this is what we try to do with the project we call EOSC Focus, to focus things. Also, we have started up 4 new task forces, one on fair metrics and digital objects. You see the chairs here, 51 members, and Klaus Tochterman from the board is the liaison person. A task force on health data, again, chairs, co-chairs, 44 members, and Ignacio Blanquer is our liaison officer from the board. Then the one on EOSC technical and semantic interoperability, basically 3 subgroups, semantic, technical, and AAI. 60 members, and Bob Jones being the liaison person there. And then the one on long-term data retention, 37 members, and Sara Garavelli being the liaison person with the beautiful logo of this symposium under Sara. Still there, Sara, see? The association, together with the Commission and all the projects, has met in June this year, again organized by the EOS Focus, well, initiated by the Commission to be more exact, but organized by EOS Focus in order to bring these projects together. And the projects last year said, we want to talk more often, not once a year for a day or so in Brussels. No, we would like to have more time to interact with each other in order to work on technical issues or to work on other issues that are in common. So we have started up 6 what we call opportunity area expert groups. So we identified with them 6 areas which form an opportunity for working together, and we have formed 6 opportunity area expert groups from these projects together with, let's say, people that are experts in those domains. The next meeting we will have, and this was organized by these expert groups last time, is the Winter School in 2025. We had a Winter School in 2024. If I sum up what I've been saying, then we can see that the EOSC Association has grown into a dynamic, well-structured, responsive entity that is representing the full diversity of the stakeholders in this domain. The EOSC membership is an in-kind contribution, and the in-kind contributions in the form of additional activities are a clear testament to the collective commitment our members have to this development. The EOSC Association has led the charge in shaping the EOSC Federation, delivering tangible results that really make a difference and begin making more of a difference. The success of the EOSC Federation will depend on the buy-in and the uptake of the community in Europe, of all the countries in Europe jointly. Who better than the association to collaboratively lead the EOSC Federation, guided by the trusted oversight of the tripartite governance? And with that question, I would like to leave you.
Thank you, Karel. And I invite the other speakers, Michael and Volker, to join this panel. So I was mentioning that the slide was warming up. And I'm gonna take the first question that I see there. And the first question is about the users. So how will you practically involve the end users? And how will you reach researchers that might not be in the typical smaller group or the ones that you have already reached out? Any ideas? Michael.
Yes, I think to a large extent this has indeed been a key part of the strategy, the approach in particular over the last year. Let me mention the much closer, much more intensive involvement of the science clusters and the users around them. Research infrastructures in general, both as users and providers. Also, we are financing now, and also we launched an additional topic call in 2024, exactly to support use cases. So the whole purpose of this wave of projects is to involve the end users and to support cases, concrete cases of how they could use EOSC in new use cases. We have also been very explicit on some specific thematics. We have systematically supported the areas of EU missions, so the cancer mission, the climate mission. Next year we will have the soil mission also. So here we involve directly the end users. There have also been some specific EU priorities, like in biotech and advanced materials. And here we have also injected, if you like, EOSC as a key element of linking with the end users.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else wants to?
Well, I would like to try to answer the question by a question to the audience. Whom of you is either an active researcher now or has been an active researcher in the past? Please raise your hands.
Oh, wow.
Do we involve the researchers? Yes, I think we do involve the researchers.
Volker.
So I think the question brings us back a bit to the criticism we have heard over the years. What do I get out of EOSC? And of course, it's a valid question. But if you have been working in EOSC projects, of course, you have no excuse, right? You drove how we do EOSC, and you defined what the users need, because you created projects where you say, this is what we really need. So we need the communities to define what the users need. Then we have the long tail of science. That's always a difficult question. What do they want? What do they need? They don't have a representation. We hope that through the EOSC Federation, a EU node, where you can do some research in this setup, that we see if this responds what the long tail of science, for example, needs, or the small research groups which don't have somebody speaking out for them. But this is something we have to see. So it's a bit a bet on the future with the Federation if this is going to deliver.
Yeah, thank you very much. The next question moves the focus on the projects, especially on the project's outputs. And the question is about what mechanisms will EOSC put in place to reuse and leverage what's been produced by the projects?
We saw already from the EOSC Future project, there was already a service catalog, and the EOSC node offered the opportunities to onboard. Of course, they had, again, to reapply to show the right level of substance going into the offerings, the right level of quality assurance. So this is one example where, indeed, there was a leverage. Also, there are different catalogs, I mean, including from the association, who is trying to group valuable outputs, and there are many of them. So this is like a first step to then onboard these services either into own nodes or into nodes of other institutions. So there is an effort of leveraging these excellent results, and we're trying to make it more systematic.
Well, in general, this is difficult. Let's be honest. We have said in the past, and I would like to repeat that here, EOSC is not going to be created by projects. This is not the way we can do that. Luckily enough, we have started with the procurement, we have the questionnaire, we have the parties interested, so that will start a federation, and then we can build a physical EOSC, and not only a process that we call EOSC. But it's difficult to maintain the results coming out of projects. Therefore, I would like to call on all the organizations in Europe that either are interested in or are thinking about forming an EOSC node now or in the near future, that they look at these projects, look at the deliverables of the projects, whether they can be taken up into these, let's say, EOSC nodes. And I'm sure there are pretty much, there are very many interesting results that could be taken up by organizations if they really start looking at them.
I have a bit of a different take on this. If you work on a project and you create something, you want this to survive, right? And you are working in a research organization probably. And so you have to convince your research organization first thing that this is something that your community needs. And then you have to work at the national level or organizational level to get the support for that. And then you can later on expose this to the EOS Federation. But the work always, I think, has to start in your institution, in your country, in order to get the support. We tend to always look a bit too much at the Commission to provide the guidance or the financial support, but in principle it has to first come from your organization or from your from your country.
Yeah, and if I can add something, because I have also a slightly different take on this, I think that the projects are not only delivering services, but they did a massive work also with other things about education, skills, training, upskilling the countries. So this is a concrete impact that we can see. And I mean, we can see also today in this room, I mean, all the people that are here. So this was already something that have been, that it's permanent, it's not gonna die. So I think there is also this aspect that we should not forget. I'm gonna take another question from slide, and then I'm gonna ask to the audience if there is someone that wants to ask a question live. There is a question about how can academic institutions contribute to EOSC, not from the infrastructure point of view, but with their repositories, data, or other assets.
This is in line with my previous answer, and I do agree with Volker. The responsibility of the organization signing the contract, because it's not the individual researcher, it's the organization on behalf of which a contract is signed. The organization signing the contract should take more responsibility, and also responsibility for the research outcomes of researchers.
Well, I mean, data providers, this is what we need in the federation, right? And we had this before in the old portal. We had already this resource hub, which we now include again in the EOS EU node. So you already exposed your data. It was perhaps not as direct that you could really create workflows there. But this is the point where you have to think, are my data fair as a research organization? Can I expose them to my neighboring organizations? If yes, then probably you can also expose them again in the EOS Federation.
I think there are several elements to this, and it links a bit to the inclusive nature also of the federation, that it's our responsibility also to make low entry barriers. So starting with the first node, it is open source. We're trying to make this available to the whole community, so it should be easy to get into the federation. Also inclusiveness in terms of constant, continuous consultation whenever there are key deliverables, like we saw the first version of the handbook, again, out for public consultation. And getting back to the use cases also, we need to get into the organization institutional level and the labs. And finally, also the whole setup that not everyone would like to or need to become a node. So if you have a certain service offerings, either in terms of a data set or a set of research services, you can couple that into another node or even a set of nodes, depending on if you want to couple it nationally or thematically. So this flexibility, low entry barrier, and inclusiveness is very important for the academic institutions.
Thank you. Now I'm looking at the audience here on site. Does anyone want to ask a question? Over there.
Hello, I'm Peter McCallum from Elixir. You've talked about the tripartite a lot. I wonder how you see the relationship with the ESFRI research infrastructures and the e-infrastructures. That's to everyone.
So we identified this as a core topic for EOSC. We have to get the research infrastructures, the large European research infrastructures on board. And for this, we have, for example, we have this task force. The association has also a specific task force in linking not only with the research infrastructures, but including the e-infrastructures, the same we do in the ESFRI EOSC task force. It's obvious that we need the ESFRIs and the ERICs in order to be successful, because they have the expertise on their data. They have developed over partly decades services and expertise. So this we have to integrate, and we have to make this attractive for you.
Yeah, as Volker said, we have in the association created fora, a forum for funders, a forum for the mandated organization, a forum for the e-infrastructures, and one for the research infrastructures, which is called the work group in that particular case. So we are, on top of the normal communication we have, especially engaging with those parties in order to listen to them, to talk to them, to get them informed and to get them on board.
Yes, so Volker grabbed my, my handling of the microphone because he is part of the EOSC ESFRI task force, and what you mentioned is exactly some of its part of its mandate. The dedicated groups within the association, this is also a new thing and very, very much needed and welcomed. The third thing is looking at it from the point of view of the research infrastructures, and here we know that digitalization is increasingly important, and that EOSC, of course, plays a key role in that in terms of joint services, in terms of research data management services, sharing, and workflows. And this is why the connection to ESFRI is so important, and the involvement of the research infrastructures, not only the ESFRIs, but the broader set of research infrastructures in building up the federation is so important.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I follow up on this with the next question on the slide, though, because you already, Michael, mentioned inclusiveness. And there is this question asking if you can reassure us that EOSC supports equality, equity, inclusiveness, and social benefits, and not only those related to business or economy and competitiveness.
As you said, it was partly covered by the other question at the level of institutions, because that has a lot to do with equity and equality and inclusiveness, and the whole design of EOSC as a common public good. So it's really at the core of it, and each and every step of the way, when we set up criteria and processes, when we make decisions in the tripartite governance, this is at the core of it, EOSC as a public good.
Yeah, please.
So I have a question, Kevin Ashley from the Digital Curation Centre in the UK. I have a question about the handbook that I think Carl mentions out for consultation at the moment. So it's great to see that you're engaging in this way and looking for this collective input on it. But I am concerned, and I know others have been, that it's quite difficult to comment on a document in two parts, to be able to comment on Chapter 1 when we don't know what Chapter 6 is going to say. And by the time we're invited to comment on Chapter 6, we may realize, if I knew you were going to say that, I would have made a comment on Chapter 1. How are you going to resolve that problem for us?
The second consultation will contain all the chapters. You can again consult on Chapter 1 in the second consultation. The whole handbook will be open for consultation. It's only the first generation of the handbook, the first iteration, because probably every year we need an update of the handbook. And again, we need consultation rounds for that.
We had exactly your question 2 months ago. And what we said was, you shouldn't leave them empty. At least you should say what kind of questions will be answered in this section, and give you the opportunity to say, but wait a minute, what about this question? Where will this be answered? So this is the way we resolved it. It was a bit a balancing act between issuing the whole thing, but would have come later, or keeping the momentum going and saying at least what comes next. But you're right in your comment. You will have the opportunity to comment on the whole thing when it's complete. Well, in fact, it will never be complete. It will be evolving.
Let's not say never. I see there is an hand raised there.
Hello, Alexander Beresko, Lviv Polytechnic National University, Ukraine. Dear panelists, what would be recommended steps for research communities outside the European Union which are not that integrated into the European research area to get more involved into EOSC Federation? Thanks.
Well, so we, as steering board, we are very open to discuss also with countries which are not necessarily Horizon Europe. This is difficult for the Commission at times, but at the bilateral approach, it's very easy, right? We can discuss, we can invite you, we can discuss with you what are the next steps. And the Federation, I think there it's easier in a sense to onboard, no, to
become an observer in the Federation,
okay.
in the association,
Yes.
sorry.
So in that sense, I think the entry point is the EOSC Association, and then through the EOSC Federation, I think you will be able to connect directly with that. That would be my answer to this point. But I don't know if the Commission has a different...
Yes, I mean, that manifested, for instance, in the access policies. So you've seen first draft, it's very much concentrated on EU member states and associated countries. But, of course, you would need to have some kind of interaction, some kind of API, if you like, to other parts of the world and their clouds or infrastructures. So this, of course, is absolutely yes, and the associated countries. Signe reminds me. Yes, both to member states. Yes. So, because, of course, thematic communities, they work on a global level, and you would need this kind of interaction. You would have to be able to find data sets from around the world. You will have to benefit from research services being developed elsewhere. For the time being, we are concentrating on building the federation between associated countries and member states, but with always being open to the rest of the world.
Thank you. There is a question here in the front. If someone can bring microphone, it's coming.
Hi, Jörg Surevetter from NFDI. Thanks for releasing the software as open source for the EOSC node to come. I was wondering then who is in charge of the governance process for further developing this open source software. So usually there's some kind of organization behind driving such open source projects. Will this be EOSC itself, or is there foreseen to be yet another organization?
Well, for the time being, it's the Commission, right? That is working very closely together with the three, the consortia for the three lots. As we said, at the same time, we're working on what would be not only the governance of the EOSC initiative, but also the governance of the federation. So your question is still open. We, for the time being, still have a couple of years or a bit more to experiment also with what kind of arrangements should there be for the governance, not of EOSC, but the federation itself, the system of systems, if you like, or the web of fair data and services. It's clear that it's not necessarily the same as for the whole setup in terms of driving also investments and aligning policies and rules, because this is an operational system that needs to be operating professionally 24/7. How is this governed? Who takes the decisions on how this is evolved? Who makes the decisions on who can access what kind of the system at what point in time? So this is still to be set up. For the time being, it's simple because it's a procurement, right? So, but eventually we will have to find a more permanent setup which does not involve the Commission as a continuous procurer of the system.
Thanks, Michael. There is, I think, another question there.
Yes, Heidi Leine from CSC Finland. So I would like to ask you about the common European data spaces and EOSC in relation to these. EOSC as one of the data spaces, but as quite a different from the others, at least it seems at the moment. So what's the EOSC's position towards these, and how should and could EOSC engage with the other data spaces, especially on the topic of interoperability?
Yes, so EOSC is clearly the most advanced of the European common data spaces. It's the one that has been the longest on the way, also technically. So from the beginning, when the other data spaces were reflecting on how they would be set up, we have always offered EOSC to make sure that there would be no duplication of efforts and that they would benefit from the experience we have, because you mentioned in particular interoperability. For that, the Commission is also procuring a piece of middleware called Simple, which goes hand in hand in terms of developments with the procurement of the EOSC EU node and the further evolution of that. So we are in close contact with colleagues working on the Simple interoperability framework. But that's not the only kind of relationship that EOSC as a common space for science, research and innovation would have with the others. Each and every one would have their particularities. You know, the one that among the others that are probably the most advanced is the European Health Data Space, where at the basis there is a regulation also. So here we are discussing with our colleagues in DG Santé and our colleagues on health research, also to make sure that they are developed hand in hand. So this is an evolution. We are working also with others like the manufacturing data space. I mentioned before in my reply the advanced materials, which is another case, which would be part of the manufacturing space. So this is also evolving, but we're very much also part of that policy agenda, which is the European strategy for data, as much as we're involved in the European research area, of course.
So I see this it's a very critical point right now. So I see this European health data space developing, and at least at the country level, these are different ministries, so it's very difficult to even get into discussion. And I see the same a bit at the EU level. Okay, there are some discussions, but are we really working together? No, we are not yet. So, and we have to make sure that we don't wait too long before we practically do something together. It's very difficult because everybody's already very busy in its own ecosystem, but we have to really avoid this duplication. And with the health data space, I see a lot of risk there, that there are now at the national levels structures put up which duplicate things which we have developed already and which could benefit from our expertise at least, if not even directly from services.
I'm a little bit more optimistic. First of all, for all these domains where there are possible data spaces or data spaces planned or foreseen, research and innovation is relevant. I am not aware of any domain where research and innovation is not relevant. Thus, the work EOSC is doing is relevant for those data spaces, and EOSC being the data space on research and innovation. But to give you the example of the data space that is, let's say, the furthest so far in our view, and also you mentioned that, Michael, is the European Health Data Space. We talked to them several times and organized jointly a roundtable a couple of weeks ago in Brussels, where we had 25 people coming from the European Health Data Space on the one hand, and coming from EOSC on the other hand, and sometimes coming from both, because there were people from different countries that are doing as well the European Health Data Space in their country, as are involved in the EOSC development with possible nodes. So it's a little bit more optimistic there in some of the countries, and we have indeed indicated that this needs to be linked in many of the countries, the knowledge about it and the possibilities with it.
Thank you. I think we have time for one last question. Anyone? Giorgio?
Thank you very much.
It's already on.
It's a complementary comment. Things don't go as smoothly as we would like, because if you read what was written in the ESRI roadmap 2018 is exactly the rationale of the ESFRI EOSC task force of today. And so 8 years went by. But still, the obvious synergy, interaction, and I would say sustainability issue of having research infrastructure heavily involved with the EOSC and vice versa is a complex issue that we still have to develop. It's obvious, but it's not trivial to make it work because it's clear the research infrastructures have developed some excellent services, but these excellent services were developed for their own community because that is their mission. And so just saying these data and these services come into a broader audience of EOSC would not make such an impact because those who are already served by these services will still go to those, perhaps through the EOSC portal. The issue now is to understand from the research infrastructures which of the services they developed and the technology they developed could be upscaled for a broader scope of the EOSC. And therefore, once identified by the infrastructures in the dialogue, which of their tools could be upscaled, then the issue is to find out what resources are needed for this upscaling to occur, to reach the real interoperability, because it has never been an issue for a research infrastructure to make an effort, a financial effort, to make the data interoperable to a community that is very far away from their constituency, so their scope. So we do believe, and the Commission and the steering board and the association work together to find out the best role of research infrastructures. It's still a matter of understanding exactly what would be the best way. And I repeat the word sustainability because sometimes we worry about the sustainability of EOSC, but in fact it's the sustainability of the whole research system that could gain with the economy of scale of EOSC. So it would reflect back to all the research producers and actors if we do it right.
Thanks, Giorgio, for this contribution.
Yeah, I agree with Giorgio, and also Murphy applies to EOSC Federation, of course. You're absolutely right. But the good thing, for example, of the recent development is that several of the health-related research infrastructures have started talking to each other, whether they join forces on how to divide the tasks, etc., exactly in the direction as you mentioned. So, yeah, but Murphy's still there.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's why they have come together in the science clusters. But also, it goes beyond digital research objects in terms of research data or research services. Research infrastructures, they're being digitized all the way from the equipment, instrumentation, the experimentation, the whole experiment phase. And here, I think there are also economies of scale to be gained and developing of joint services. So I think they have to go a bit beyond just the research data sets and how they're managing. And you're right in pointing out the services. They've been developed for their own communities, but looked at it in connection with the whole digitalization of research infrastructure. Access as well. Access, of course, is also more and more digital. And there, I think there would be opportunities for even further joining services and sharing, and that through EOSC.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Maybe just to close the panel, any wishes for this symposium?
So we can discuss all the questions about the federation, but I want this can-do attitude. We are not going to have the handbook ready before we want you to engage in this federation. So it's a learning by doing process. So let's have again this enthusiasm. We can do that. And then we can answer all the questions as we go. And we don't have to have all the answers before we start. That's I think, my message.
Or maybe also look at what can we not do, but have at EOSC in the future. What would I be able to do? What would be the benefits of joining? What is the added value?
Got it.
Well, I would like to close off by quoting first Manuel Heitor, who said, EOSC has the potential to become the most generally used infrastructure in Europe, and then quoting Iliana Ivanova by saying, the European Commission is fully committed to this endeavor. Now it's up to us to make it happen.
Yeah, thank you very much. A big applause for the panel. Okay, so we are reaching the end of this opening session. Before closing and adding to the coffee break, I still need a couple of minutes of your attention. So first of all, this is the agenda of the afternoon. So after this plenary session, we are gonna, the breakout sessions will start. So we have a coffee break and then there are breakout sessions. Breakout sessions are taking place, of course, in different rooms. In order to reach the other rooms, you need to exit this building and enter from the H4 hotel, okay? Or you can also do not exit and cross, you go on the right and you cross the restaurant. But the message here is that if you are planning to attend one of the two other breakout sessions that are not in this room, go immediately after the end of this session. My colleague Pichla there, can you stand up? She can take you there, so follow Pichla, and you will find coffee breaks there as well. So this is also a way to not, so if you don't want to queue for the entire coffee break here in the foyer or in the restaurants, go directly to the room that you're interested in, and you will find also coffee there. So that's the first message. The second message is that the sessions that are taking place in this room are two sessions related to impacts. So that's what's happening in the plenary room. In the Grenander room, there is a session on EOSC and the health data space, followed by a session on sensitive data. And then in the Friedrich Wilhelm room, there is a session on the infra-EOSC projects and a session on the research software. Okay, then at the end of the day, all of you that have signed up for the networking dinner, you're welcome to the Hofbrauhaus. I hope that my pronunciation went, Ute is saying, yeah, maybe. So you will have a chance to enjoy traditional Bavarian cuisine and authentic Oktoberfest atmosphere. The dinner starts at 7, and the location of the networking dinner is really close to this venue. So you will have time to chill out a bit and then join the networking dinner. Just a recommendation, remember to wear your badge. This is just for security reasons, so come with your badge, but also with your traditional national dress. So tonight we're going to have a competition, okay? So get ready for that. And also another note that the correct entrance for the networking dinner is not on the main street, but is on the side street. I assume that you will recognize other colleagues, and it's literally there, so I hope that you can make it, okay? I'm confident you will make it. Okay, so this was the last part for this session. Before closing, so I want to thank you all very much. First of all, that you were here on time. You filled all the seats, so the room is very packed, and we really hope that you enjoyed this opening session. Much more is coming. Do not escape immediately. We want to take a group photo, okay? That is going to be very easy because we will take, first of all, and please, you can come in the meantime. So we will do first a photo with you sitting and then standing up. The only persons that need to move are those like on this side. So you need to move in the back and standing. The first 3 rows on the right, as well as the first 3 rows on the left, if you want to be in the picture. So please go to the back or take one of those seats. There are some seats here in front as well. Maybe Few seats are available here in front. Gotta go for the picture as well.